Hello and welcome to this special video. This is my top 12 players to target, and I'm going to start with my number 12. This is the first video I'm releasing in this series, and I'll be working my way forward to my number 1, which I'll be releasing just after the first week in August. For this video, it's actually two players. Both I can't really split. I'm splitting hairs on these two guys, and they are rookies. But I'm making a prediction about these guys. Leonard Fournette and Dalvin Cook, in my mind, are top 12 RBs for this season. One of them will be an RB 1 to 5 in 2017. I believe that Leonard Fournette, out of the gate, ends up as being a very targeted running back for 2018. I think he can produce very high numbers indeed. I believe that Leonard Fournette will get you over 200 fantasy points in his first season coming into the league. And I know a lot of people like rookies, but I'm actually particularly high on this guy for this season for a number of reasons. He has an exceptional frame. He's 6'1", 235 pounds, and he runs with a mixture of Adrian Peterson and Bo Jackson. And I use those words carefully because that's the reality. That's what he is. This is what a lot of scouts talk about with him. He is a special talent. There are many players that argue that the landing spot wouldn't be good enough for him, but I think what you've got to do is take opportunity and mix that in with the way it's going to go for workload. And I think what you'll see is a player that's going to produce some incredibly high numbers. Now, Dalvin Cook's situation is very different. Obviously, a smaller frame guy. 5'11" and 215 pounds. There's an interesting thing about running backs that come in. One of the key criteria is they have to be over 210 pounds because those that are smaller generally don't do as well. So Cook finds his way into an interesting team setup. I think this year he's probably an RB12. He may end up RB12 to 15 range. He's going to have a mixture of pass catching and running work, and certainly you're going to have to pay a high premium for him to get the return value that is needed. But Cook and Fournette are the cream of the crop with these two guys. They have been on my list for a very long time. I like both for different reasons. I think in Dynasty, both these guys are excellent. And I've actually, in some Dynasty leagues, as people will know, have targeted them as 101 and 102 respectfully, depending on the league I've got and what I'm looking to do. And I think getting two of those into your team gives you, in Dynasty, a certain amount of satisfaction for the next few years. I'm very high on Fournette for this season, and I do see him having an exceptional season, a bit like Ezekiel Elliott did. Maybe not as high in numbers because he's certainly not operating outside or inside a team with that kind of offensive line. But make no mistake about it, the Jacksonville Jaguars are heading in the right direction. And you saw it, interesting enough, we come back to Cook. Al released some fascinating stats, and he wasn't aware of my list at all. He didn't know the players that I was targeting, nor did he know about some of the stats that he's released about other people and what they look at for metrics have fitted very well with Fournette and Cook, which is quite interesting. But Cook has some things about him that I think make fascinating reading. Now, he's working with a quarterback that's incredibly accurate. He's going to dump the ball off an awful lot. Cook can come in and take away a lot of that work. He can do a lot of running as well between the tackles. He's surprisingly different than a lot of people think, Cook. And his pro day was pretty poor. We know that. We also understand that this doesn't always bode well because, when you look at the SPARQ, as it's called, test, not many succeed when it's that poor. And I understand that, but I just think it was one of those occasions that happens. Everybody has a bad day at the office, and I'm afraid that was Cook's bad day. But his bad day at the office is someone's game fantasy-wise. And I think with both these guys, you're doing well. The one cautionary risk I've got to add in with both, this is why they're at 12 and they're not higher on my list, is very simple. It depends an awful lot on the league format. Now, I need to quantify both these guys very carefully. The first thing is, if you have a very large league, that really is a league that's 16 teams or more, you certainly don't target rookies anywhere near the top of your list. That's a fact. You just don't bother with it. So unfortunately, because of the ADP of Fournette, he is going too high for a lot of leagues. He just is too high a risk, too high a premium to pay. But what I think you will find is this is a player that will actually produce really good numbers. So if you're in a smaller league, maybe a 12 or a 14, you can take a punt because you have an extra round or two to get players right. It's worth taking a risk on Fournette, and I guarantee you will not look back with Fournette. He will deliver some numbers right out of the gate that are going to surprise people. And the same for Cook, but Cook's is tempered a little bit more, that he's not going to be taking the primary running back duties. He's going to be more eased into the passing game. There's a lot to like about him. So I'm more cautious about Cook, but I bet you when it's all said and done, Cook ends up being an RB 12 to 15. And that isn't bad, actually. But the only thing that's problematic for him at the moment is his ADP hasn't fallen enough to make him a pick that I can absolutely say, yes, you nail that pick. If I had to pick one of the two, and I like both are great for Dynasty. Cook is more relevant next year, but Fournette comes straight out of the gate and gives you a great year one. Fournette will only be around in this league for 3 to 4 years because of his body size, and he will then have lots of problems to deal with, I think. It'd be very rare for a guy that size with those abilities to actually stand upright for a number of years. So you have to weigh these things up in all formats, but that's why I've chosen them as my number 12.